More oftentimes than not, when a franchise starts expanding its world and diving deeper into its lore, it's only a matter of time before it branches out into something new. We've seen it before on this channel. Mortal Kombat did it with Mythology Sub-Zero and Shaolin Monks, expanding the universe beyond the mainline games. Every great series eventually takes that leap, trying to grow its identity through spin-offs. Sometimes, those experiments hit gold. Other times, not so much. But hey, at least they tried. And when you look at franchises like Saints Row, one that evolved from a street-level gang drama to full-blown chaos, it was only a matter of time before they did the same. A spin-off that connects directly to the main story, yet closes the book on the original Saints Row saga. A game starring the most iconic member of the Saints, stepping up to give the franchise a proper send-off. Welcome to episode 5 of the Saints Row Takeover. Today, we're saving the president in Saints Row, Gat Out of Hell.
I started out with nothing. Just a kid from the streets with nothing to lose. Once I joined the 3rd Street Saints, everything started going my way.
All right, everybody listen up. We got some serious to discuss.
You earned your colors today.
I think it's time we give those other crews a wake-up call. The Saints used to own Stillwater, and it seems like the only that remember that is me and Gat.
Shit took me half the time.
Welcome to the 3rd Street Saints. Let's get down to business.
If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. And if you're new here, welcome. I'm the Retro Phantom. Digital handshake, nice to meet you. Today marks the end of our Saints Row journey on the channel, and honestly, it's been one wild ride. Revisiting this franchise has been a blast, and if it weren't for this channel, I probably wouldn't have gone back to experience Saints Row 1 from 2006, so it was totally worth it. But don't worry, we're just getting started with what's next. Next week continues the Rockstar Takeover, leading us into the end of the year. We've got Midnight Club LA, GTA Lost in the Dam, GTA Ballad of Gay Tony, Red Dead Redemption, LA Noire, Max Payne 3, and we're ending the year off with GTA 5. So if you want to stay caught up with all the uploads, hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 10K subs and we're less than 3K away. And if you enjoyed this video or learned something new, giving it a like really helps small channels like this one grow against YouTube's algorithm. And if you're feeling generous, you can always buy me a cup of coffee. With that said, let's dive in. If this is your first Saints Row video, feel free to skip the recap. As always, you can jump ahead using the timeline below. Years ago in 2003, Volition, a studio that would later become one of THQ's signature developers, began brainstorming ideas for a new kind of open world game. What started as a small development exercise would eventually evolve into the foundation of Saints Row.
We had this design exercise, this was one of the first times we'd done it at the studio. We invited everyone to participate in coming up with new game ideas.
One of the ideas was this gang simulator. First-person shooter, gang simulator, real straightforward, nasty little game. And we were talking about it, and to me, the idea of doing that didn't make sense, but what made sense to me was to go where the audience was, but there wasn't a lot of competitors. And for us, that was open world. There was nobody doing those games. It was just basically GTA. And my attitude was, there's 8 million people playing those games. No one's been able to succeed. We're a very high-tech group. Why don't we take a shot at this? And instead of trying to do all kinds of different things like role-playing games and first-person shooters and all this sort of stuff, why don't we just try and focus all of our skills into one area, which would be open world.
So we cobbled together this vision trailer by taking clips from movies and clips from other games and cut it to a hip-hop song name I can't remember, the song I can't remember, but yeah, it was Fuck the Police, that was it. And we played that in the boardroom. And there was dead silence afterwards, and the CFO says, is this really the kind of game that we want to be making? And they talked about, we're near LA. Gangs are a serious matter here. You know, we have gang fights, we have gang riots, we have a lot of people being killed. Brian Farrell, the CEO, said, you know, someone's going to make games like this. I believe in this, and we're going to make this game. And then we came up with rules like there will be no children. You can't kill the police, which that rule fell away. And I forget what a lot of the other ones were. It was, people were very nervous about what we were doing there. I think some of them were probably worried, you know, someone's going to throw bricks through my window or something like that.
It was an interesting struggle. There were people who were not happy with what we were making there. I mean, on the team, did not want to make that game, did not want to even be associated with that game.
It was called Bling Bling at the time. That was the name of the concept, and it was, back when the term was, I don't know, I can't say cool, but like new.
It was really more of a gang simulator. It was a more serious game. But to me, the sort of wacky humor aspects of Saints Row, for me, I hope for a lot of people, take away a lot of the, you know, oh my God, you know, you're a gangbanger doing these terrible things. You give player tools like driving vehicles and explosives and so forth, and a somewhat real city to do it in, they're gonna do wacky stuff.
It was kind of crazy because it was a brand new structure, and the genre was completely new, and then we decided to go to the 360 rather than doing it on PS2.
The documentation was incomplete. We weren't sure how fast it would be. We weren't sure how much memory it would be. We didn't know what the throughput was going to be from the DVD, which in a streaming open world game is really important.
That was definitely the hardest project I've been on. Technically, it was just extremely difficult, and we had to do streaming worlds for the first time, and I mean that alone is just enough to make some companies just shut down.
I think THQ really believed in the game, believed it was going to be successful. I think a lot of people here thought this is taking too long. There's too much stuff getting cut, thrown out. I'm working really hard here, and this game's not going to turn out well. And I think there was a fair amount of negativity on the team. It was like Red Faction.
We were dealing with a level of complexity that we had never, we'd never tackled before.
Our largest ever budget of $8 or $9 million, I think, and we blew through that by a lot. THQ doesn't like talking about budgets, but.
We'd never been above, I think, about 30, 40 people in a team, and all of a sudden we had 100 plus people on Saints Row.
Really, once we crossed 100, I realized I can't keep up anymore. You know, a name pops in, a name pops out. Someone had a beard, he shaves his beard, I think he's a new employee, I embarrass myself.
Every year, Mike would, at the company meeting, would show a chart of like, you know, how many heads we'd hired or whatever, and it was pretty much going up every year.
Being part of THQ, I don't really think changed the company very much. Team size growing is what changed the company a lot.
What the fuck you think you're doing? Just being civic-minded is all.
People didn't know how the game was going to be received. There was a lot of negativity in the postmortems. Everybody is asked to write a postmortem as soon as possible after the game is done. So it's what you're thinking then, not when you look back and say, well, the game was really successful, it wasn't that bad. So there was a lot of negativity in there. There was a lot of criticism of management.
And then it came out and it did very well, and all of a sudden that changed. So it was very interesting to watch that, the metamorphosis of the people who didn't support the game to all of a sudden, yeah, let's do another one and let's make it better. Saints Row 2 and the fact that it really came out and kind of put the mark that we wanted to put out there and say this is about making fun, and it's about creating, you know, that over-the-top feel and doing it so that it's more about the player. You know, spending time not trying to make what a designer wants to make, but what the player wants to enjoy.
I think it's awesome that it's sort of identified itself as it's got this unique identity that it didn't have necessarily with the first title. You know, it was always like GTA, you know, comparisons and whatever, and that's, you know, completely fair, but it was cool to see, especially, you know, Saints Row 2 and 3 is just taking it even further, just being able to find its own identity and it's this certain brand of humor and action and just craziness, you know, it's just, really? You guys did that? You know, I still hear stuff that just cracks me up.
I think these people are much happier and because they understand what they're making.
From there, the series would grow rapidly, and by the time Saints Row III arrived, it had become a full-blown cultural phenomenon. that game took the franchise in a much more commercial, over-the-top direction. It divided fans. Some missed the gritty crime roots of the first two games, while others embraced the sheer chaos, but regardless, it was a massive success. After the third, Volition spent around 3 months developing what was supposed to be a standalone expansion called Enter the Dominatrix, a superpowered DLC meant to take the insanity to another level. But things changed when Jason Rubin stepped in as THQ's new president. Rubin made a bold call. Instead of releasing Into the Dominatrix as a separate project, Volition should fold it into a bigger, full-scale sequel. His reasoning made sense. With the next-gen consoles right around the corner, THQ didn't want to launch a current-gen Saints Row 4 too late into the cycle. So the team reworked the DLC into a full-fledged sequel, and while that move kept the franchise alive, it also meant Enter the Dominatrix never released in its original form. In the end, what started as a 3-month side project became Saints Row 4 in 2013, a game that pushed the series to its absolute limit with superpowers, simulations, and world-ending chaos.
In a way, Saints Row 4 has the same problem as Superman. The thing many comic book fans find a little bit boring about the Man of Steel is that if you're basically a god, nothing can challenge you. And what's a hero without a challenge to overcome? That same boredom eventually proves to be Saints Row 4's kryptonite. But not before showing us a good time by giving us superpowers and letting us run wild in the open-world city of Steelport.
The warhead's disabled, but it's still moving, boss. Boss, you're right over the...
In the first hour, our hilariously customizable Saints boss character pushes the increasingly over-the-top premise of an idealized street gang well past its limits. In a quick series of linear levels, you stop a terrorist attack, become President of the United States, and fight an invasion led by a huge alien British for some reason warlord. The whole story is so absurd and full of gags and references that it works.
Why do you humans enjoy leaping so much? Get off my lawn, you son of a bitch!
After that, you're trapped in a Matrix-like recreation of Steelport, which is disappointingly unchanged from the Saints Row the Third version, except for some massive alien towers and a few less noticeable tweaks. Saints Row 4's variety and personality comes mostly from its unique mission maps, which range from the alien ship to a hellish 1960s sitcom world to a Splinter Cell parody. It was kind of a pain to have to keep returning to my stolen alien ship to meet with my crew to get new missions. But it was worth it for the Mass Effect-inspired romance gags.
Hey, Kinsey, you wanna...
Let's go.
The character editor also deserves a special mention. Just like in Saints Row the Third, it's a fantastic toy that lets you play as virtually anybody. There are more costume options here than I even know what to do with, and just browsing the vast selection of characters other players have uploaded is good for at least another hour or two of entertainment.
What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt
I don't know where that came from.
no more.
In the open world areas, Saints Row 4 effectively becomes an entirely different game from its predecessors thanks to these new superpowers. Super leaping and running through this city is liberating. There's nowhere you can't go on a whim. I felt nigh invulnerable because of the plentiful health pickups enemies drop, and all I ever had to do to get out of trouble was leap away. And with powers like telekinesis and ice blasts, I barely needed weapons at all. But I definitely appreciated the new alien arsenal. The standard Saints Row 2-player co-op mode is definitely enhanced by the superpowers. Watching another player demolish waves of aliens with ice blasts and shockwaves while dressed as a bearded lady in an astronaut outfit is almost as much fun as doing it myself. Yet with great power has come great drawbacks, as many of the good features carried over from Saints Row the Third now feel completely vestigial. Why do I need gun upgrades when I can shoot fireballs from my hand? Why should I bother summoning homies to help me in combat when I can throw tanks with my mind? What's worse is that getting pulled back into reality to do story missions causes severe whiplash. What do you mean I can't super jump? Running here is so slow. This sucks. I couldn't help feeling like a spoiled child who's sick of all his expensive toys yet cries when they're taken away. Of course, if it weren't for the new superpowers, mission design would rarely feel like anything more than standard issue open world stuff. Like, go here and kill everything, or find me this car I need and bring it back. But climbing the enormous alien towers is the standout. It's one of the few times where precise use of your powers actually seems to matter, outside of the very artificial feeling test courses. And like Saints Row's past, this one is full of side activities. Many are recycled, but still entertaining. A few new ones make use of our powers, like the super speed foot races and super jump platforming courses, but those can get old pretty quick. With its recycled map and wildly overpowered abilities, playing Saints Row 4 feels a lot like enabling godlike cheat codes in Saints Row III and going absolutely nuts. Its ridiculous story, goofy characters, self-aware humor, and amazing character editor make it all work. But its appeal is shortened by the ludicrous speed at which we can zip across it and grow tired of its lack of challenge.
Want the full story behind those games, feel free to check them out on my channel. Now that we're all caught up, let's jump into Gat Out of Hell. Everything leading up to this spinoff started with one single tweet. December 13th, 2013. The tweet came from Jay Moore, the voice actor behind Dane Vogel. In it, he posted a picture inside a recording booth with the caption, "About to do my voiceover work for a new Saints Row video game." That one tweet was all it took to light the fuse. Fans immediately began speculating, wondering if Volition was secretly working on Saints Row 5. After all, Saints Row 4 had divided the fan base with its over-the-top tone, so players weren't sure what direction the next game might take. Neither Volition nor Deep Silver said a word. They just let the mystery sit there, which only made the rumors grow louder. For months, people waited for an answer. Then, on August 29th, 2014, the curtain was finally lifted. Gat Out of Hell was officially announced. In a press release, Volition stated, "Volition announced today at PAX Prime that a new standalone Saints Row 4 expansion is coming out next year for PC, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, Xbox 360, and Xbox One, called Gat Out of Hell. The standalone expansion, which doesn't require a copy of Saints Row 4, puts players in the shoes of Johnny Gat or Kinsey. The plan? Fight through hell to save the president, God Emperor of the universe, and shoot up Satan himself. Conduit developer High Voltage Software is working with Volition on this new experience." At PAX Prime, the team at Volition hosted a live panel where they broke down the game's concept, gameplay, and tone. This was the first time fans got to see Gat Out of Hell in motion, and the moment it became clear that Volition was fully embracing chaos once again.
Cash only. All right, so here's what we have. Saints Row Gat Out of Hell. Jim, tell us about it.
Yeah, so we've got, it is a new expansion pack for Saints Row, standalone, so you don't have to have Saints Row 4 or anything like that. It is being co-developed by Volition and High Voltage. It's 1 to 2 player co-op, just like you guys have been doing for a while now in our Saints Row games. So you'll be able to play with your friends. One plays as Gat, one plays as Kinsey. The release date, as you saw there, is January 27th, so we're not too far away from being able to let you guys get that. And the price is going to be $19.95. Nice.
Knowing that Gat and Kinsey were the two main playable characters, many fans asked the obvious question, why them? Years later, Kate Nelson, who served as a senior associate producer on the project, would shed some light on that decision.
I think for you, Kate, there.
What is it?
Invader Zin asking, why do you choose Kinsey as the other playable character?
I think, so the early concept of the game, the reason why we chose Gat is, he was always been that right-hand man of the boss. And the reason why we wanted to have Kinsey, there were a couple reasons. Mostly because of the dynamic that Gat and Kinsey have together, how they would play off of each other. Because Gat's very quick to judgment, he's very, angry, he solves all things with guns, that kind of a mindset, versus Kinsey, who's a little bit more analytical. She'll, want to think things through a little bit more. We wanted to play off of that. Also, we liked having a male and female option since we didn't have, your customized boss that you played as. We wanted to have both of those characters there as well. But also, Kinsey's one that, a lot of people have enjoyed seeing throughout the series. I think Gat's another one. So, it's just part of the process of deciding.
But what really caught people off guard was the tone of Gat Out of Hell. According to creative director Steve Jaros, the entire game was inspired by Disney movies. In an interview with Polygon, Jaros explained, "I wanted Gat Out of Hell to feel like a Disney movie, a Disney fairy tale with whimsical love songs. So we got to play with a lot of tropes that are standard in the fairy tale space. If you watch something like Sleeping Beauty, a birthday party is what kicks off the terrible events. So a birthday party kicks off our terrible event. Jezebel is a happy princess, and in hell, rebellion is to be happy. So she rebels against her father Satan by saying she doesn't want to be forced to marry anybody she doesn't love." It's a fascinating concept, taking the chaos of Saints Row and blending it with the lighthearted energy of a fairy tale. But behind the scenes, something was clearly shifting with Volition. In late 2014, just 4 months before the game's release, Steve Jaros announced that he was leaving Volition after a decade with the company. Steve Jaros, who spent 10 years working at Saints Row developer Volition, is leaving the Illinois-based company for Valve Software. The Volition creative director revealed on Twitter that he accepted a job at Valve Software, ending his involvement with the Saints Row series in the process. "The past 10 years at Volition have been life-changing," he wrote. "I've gotten to work with amazing people and made friends that will last a lifetime." And if you go back to that same PAX panel, you can actually see the tension. When the audience began applauding Jaros, he's visibly shielded away, almost uncomfortable with the attention.
I'm Steve. I'm the studio creative director of Volition, and I have been the lead writer of the Saints Row franchise for all of them. So, I don't deserve that. Thank you.
Whatever was going on behind the scenes, it was clear that Saints Row as a franchise was standing at a crossroads. The wild, comedic tone of Gat Out of Hell felt like both a celebration and a farewell. The final story written by Steve Jaros before he left Volition for good. Fans wouldn't have to wait long to play it either. On January 20th, 2015, Gat Out of Hell officially launched, marking the end of an era for Volition and the Saints Row series as a whole.
Rated M for mature.
My favorite part of murdering is the murdering part.
Yeah, Saints Row has been such a consistent part of my life for the last 4 years.
Say what you want about the Saints, but at least they let you play as a woman.
Woohoo! Go team. Kinsey just speaks the truth. She tells it as it is, and she's like, you either like it or you don't, but I really don't give a fuck what you think about me. I'm coming too.
Are you kidding me?
How do you plan to come back?
Yeah, I try not to sweat the details.
It's my birthday.
Fine. People who play an instrument, are able to create different sounds and different melodies from that instrument. For those people who can use their voices in such a way to create characters, different animals, it's a pretty unique skill.
I made this kind of the beginning of Sleeping Beauty where there's the storybook and opens up and it's illuminated text and storybook pages.
And you're seeing the material for the first time. They can't let this stuff out of the room because it is top secret. They'll tell you a little bit about the game, they'll show you some things to inspire you, and then the inspiration is kind of improvisational.
So, besides this one, what are the other two now?
The other two of them are basically the same. They're kind of like demon gladiators, shirtless armor, kind of tough, brutish guys.
Like this?
Yeah, like that.
I've got you. I fight you.
There's different ways to make a low sound. You can make it with your throat, down there, which doesn't use my voice really, it just uses the flesh that flaps around my throat. And you can also modify it with pinching off the nose.
From the shadows we advance.
Shut the
Surround him with darkness. Attack from all sides.
I can kind of affect it like that.
Holy fuck, I have never seen anything like that in my life. Fuck me running, dude, it's amazing.
I'm not a badass, but I play one in games and in cartoons sometimes.
Exertions, pain sounds, combat sounds, in most games. It's very cathartic. I enjoy it, but it's a very interesting method to learn.
You have to get your body into it because you can hear all that.
Oh crap, we have fire screams. Those are the best. They're so much fun. Blackbeard Fire Scream. For the love of God. It's a good abdominal workout at the end of it. It's the new P90X routine.
It's gonna be good.
Oh, awesome. What's fun about playing multiple characters is, for one thing, as an actor, you get to stretch your range.
You really get to inhabit this world. It sometimes happens that multiple characters that you're playing end up in the same scene together.
But what's also an interesting challenge is trying to make it so the characters are distinct and sound different enough where the player can't tell.
I think the time might come to play old Cupid for Dane and Kiki.
Fall in line! We will take them now! Some bit so you can burn for eternity!
Like, you just never know what's going to be handed to you.
You don't really think about when you're playing a video game, but as you get a chance to watch these performers work, you can't help but admire what they're able to do. You know, they keep pumping out Saints Row, and as long as they do, I want to be a part of it.
Here's a quick spoiler alert as I'm about to tell the story behind Saints Row Gat Out of Hell. There will also be light spoilers for Saints Row 2, Saints Row 3, and Saints Row 4. Now, if you're not a fan of spoilers, please advance this video to the gameplay overview section as seen on the timeline below. Let's dive into this. The game opens up like a storybook with a fairy tale narration by none other than Jane Austen. Yes, that Jane Austen. She sets the tone by describing a man so legendary, so exceptional that both heaven and hell took notice of him. And as fate will have it, everything starts to spiral on Kinsey's birthday. We cut to the Saint spaceship from Saints Row 4, where the crew is setting up a surprise party. Kinsey, being Kinsey, is initially unimpressed until Matt Miller mentions that there will be party games, and suddenly she's a bit more interested. The vibe lightens up. Pierce is giving Jane a manicure. Zenjai and Asha are playing pin the tail on a donkey with Sid, and the rest of the crew, Shondi, the boss, Gat, Miller, and Kinsey, are gathered around a table playing with a Ouija board. And that's when it all goes to hell. Literally.
Every slumber party has to involve a spirit board.
Slumber party?
How's it work?
We ask it a question, and the spirit of the board will reveal the answer.
How?
Yeah, someone pushes the pointy thing to wherever they want.
Wait. Can we go back to you and your slumber parties?
No time. All right. Everyone put their hands on the cursor.
Cursor. I feel the magic already.
All right. Will the President/God Emperor for life ever choose a partner to reign alongside them?
No.
Ooh, someone's getting married.
Shut up, Matt.
Who will tame the President's wild heart?
What are you guys trying to spell?
I'm not moving it.
That's the spirit, Kinsey.
I'm serious.
I'm not moving it either.
Neither am I.
Jezebel? Who the fuck?
Is that not normal?
Where'd you get the board?
I was going through Zignac's artifact collection and found it there.
Who did it belong to?
Alistair Crowley?
Guys, I think it's laughing at us.
Fuck this. I think you're a smart enough piece of wood to see where this is going. Now, you ready to cooperate? That's more like it.
You think we can trust it?
It's not like we got a lot of options.
So what's the plan? We mount up and go in after the boss?
No, I do. No sense in what's left of humanity walking right into a death trap. Someone's gotta live to tell the story.
That's a stupid plan, Johnny.
I'm leaving you in charge.
Hell of a plan, Johnny.
Are you serious?
I'm coming too.
Are you kidding me?
How do you plan to come back?
I try not to sweat the details.
You need someone with you that does.
No.
It's my birthday.
Fine. All right, then. You know where my friend is?
True to its word, the spirit board opened up another portal and sent Johnny and Kinsey screaming into hell.
Now in hell, Kinsey and Gat are immediately greeted by a glowing Ultor sign that reads, "A bright future and a better afterlife." Gat doesn't need to think twice. He suspects Dane Vogel is behind this. The duo hijacks a car and drive straight toward the Ultor building, where, sure enough, they're met by Vogel himself. As they arrive, we cut back to Jane Austen's narration. She tells us that Dane wasted no time establishing a new branch of Ultor in hell, because of course he did. Ever the opportunist, he was more than happy to give our heroes the lowdown on the politics of the underworld. But Gat doesn't care about hell's political climate. He just wants to know where the boss is. The scene cuts back to the Inferno. Gat, pistol drawn, approaches Vogel with no patience for games. Vogel insists he didn't kidnap the president, but Gat isn't convinced, at least not until Vogel slides a brochure across the table, a wedding brochure. It turns out Satan has plans. Since the boss is the most attractive human in history, Satan wants to seal the deal by marrying them off to his daughter, Jezebel. With the stakes raised, Gat, Kinsey, and Vogel form an uneasy alliance. If they're going to stop the wedding, they need a plan, one that may or may not involve shooting the devil in the face.
I'm gonna shoot the devil in the face.
I think you might be skipping some details.
No, I said in the face.
I like the commitment, but you gotta find a way to get close enough to him in the first place.
When's the wedding? I'll just show up
and then you'll shoot him in the face. Sorry, but it's a little more complicated than that. These things are tied to the soul. You won't be able to enter without one.
So how do we get one?
You get his attention. I know some places that are of particular value to the father of the bride. You hit those, you'll get your shot.
Wait, why would Satan give out an invitation for destroying his stuff?
Oh, he won't, but it should piss him off enough to get him to attack Johnny personally. Either the devil kills Gat and Ultor gets the construction contracts to rebuild what was destroyed, or Johnny kills Satan and I'll have to pay less taxes. It's pretty win-win.
That's why you're helping us? To make more money in hell?
Hell's what you make of it, sweetie.
Works for me. What you got?
All right.
Jane Austen returns to Goddess once again, this time revealing that Satan didn't manage hell alone. He left the day-to-day business to 5 archdukes. Conveniently, Dane Vogel knows how to find each one of them. But that's not all. Turns out, hell has a share of rebels too. People just as ambitious or crazy enough to oppose the devil himself. Enter the crew. The De Winter sisters from the third game, William Shakespeare the poet, Blackbeard the pirate, and Vlad the Impaler. Yeah, that Vlad. These 5 misfits share Vogel's thirst for power, and if Gat's gonna go toe-to-toe with Satan, he's gonna need every one of them on his side. To help with that mission, Vogel gives Gat something special, Satan's cracked halo, which gives him the power of flight. With wings now on his back, Gat takes to the skies and learns to fly, but with great wings comes great responsibility. Vogel explains the game plan. If Gat wants a one-on-one with Satan, he has to get his attention, and that means causing chaos. Fraud, mayhem, hazing, anything that shakes hell's foundations. With that in mind, Gat begins rallying hell's finest. First stop, Blackbeard. Gat helps him fend off an imp invasion on his ship, earning the pirates' loyalty. Next, he hits up a demonic nightclub run by William Shakespeare, now a DJ of all things. After clearing out the dance floor of demons, Shakespeare joins the cause. Then there's Vlad, who's being tortured by what may be hell's cruelest punishment. The wheels on the bus go round and round, on repeat. Gat swoops in, wrecks the guards, cuts the music, and earns Vlad's respect back at the castle. Finally, Gat tracks down the De Winter sisters, stuck in a parking garage under siege. He rescues them and brings them back to Vogel, who makes them an offer they can't refuse. With his allies assembled, the plan is finally in motion. Now, here's where things get weird. Gat, Kinsey, Jezebel, and Satan all find themselves in a full-blown musical number. Yes, a musical. Jezebel sings about her dreams of freedom, while Satan belts about forcing her to marry the president. Gat and Kinsey jump in to try and save the day, harmonizing their way through hell's family drama. Eventually, Jezebel stumbles across a news article about Gat, and just like that, she sees him as her one shot at escape. the only one bold or reckless enough to challenge her father. Gat keeps wreaking havoc across hell, finally earning a face-to-face meeting with Jezebel herself.
One night with any lover, but you have to punch a panda. Do you do it?
Ooh, good question.
Mr. Gat?
Who are you?
Well,
We're not doing that again.
Oh, okay. I'm Jezebel.
Good to know.
What are you doing?
Threatening you. You're not marrying the president.
I don't want to marry the president.
Wow, that was easier than I thought.
My dad's making me do it. What now?
Now I'm holding you hostage.
You don't need to do this.
Yeah, that's what hostages always say.
No, like, you really don't need to do this. I'm here to help you.
Yeah, but I already have the gun drawn, so,
Are you kidding me?
maybe. Not sure yet, I'm kinda winging it.
Can you wing it without the gun?
It's a comfort thing.
Not for me.
What do you want?
For you to put the gun down.
Get used to disappointment.
You sound like my father.
What?
He's always telling me that life is about misery, not happiness. That dreams only exist to make people forget about their own mediocrity.
Man, that's depressing.
Being the devil's daughter sucks.
What do you want?
I want to punch my dad in the face.
We're gonna get along just fine.
Of course, Jezebel was speaking metaphorically, but Johnny didn't notice. Jezebel was eager to help Johnny in any way she could, and vowed to find a way to sneak him into the palace. Johnny frowned at the seemingly arbitrary amount of time required for Jezebel to find a way to sneak him in. But he accepted the fact that without traditional missions, this was the best way to further the story.
With Jezebel now working behind the scenes, Gat continues to unleash chaos across hell. But just as he starts gaining traction, Satan fights back, kidnapping every one of Gat's allies in a dark ritual. Gat springs into action, rescuing Vogel, Vlad, Blackbeard, Shakespeare, and eventually the De Winter sisters from their nightmarish prisons. Eventually, the destruction Gat caused is enough to catch Satan's attention. Vogel lets him know Jezebel is ready to sneak him in, but something's wrong. Jezebel's been tracked, and she leads Gat in. Satan grabs her by the neck and threatens both of them. Gat, with no hesitation, drops his gun to save her life, and that's when Satan makes an assumption that Gat must be in love with his daughter. Gat denies it, but it doesn't matter. Satan's made up his mind. When he gets the upper hand, Jezebel flips the script, pointing her gun at her own father. Satan, surprisingly impressed by her defiance, offers Gat a deal: marry Jezebel and the president goes free. At the wedding ceremony, Gat takes his shot. Literally, he shoots Satan in the head. But, as with all things in hell, it's never that easy. Satan reappears, wings outstretched, holding the boss. He calls in his forces to destroy Gat, only for Kinsey to show up at the last moment. Together, Gat and Kinsey take the fight directly to the devil. They win. The Saints return to Earth with Jezebel, while Gat has a personal conversation with God.
And like that, the battle had ended. Satan could no longer suffer the indignity of being beaten by a mortal and disobeyed by his daughter, and so he banished them from perdition. But still, all was not well.
That was a direct order from your captain!
You're worse than Pierce!
Trivia night is sacred! You don't get to quit just because you know fuck all about pop culture.
Who knows the name of the Nightblade episode where they introduced Nightbladette?
It was called The Meaning of Reconciliation, and it was directed by Kim Stein.
I can't believe Asha sleeps with you.
I can't believe you don't.
Boss, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
What is this place?
Whoa, 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 who the fuck is that?
Her name's Jezebel. She's the devil's daughter.
Pierce is gonna have a heart attack.
Nah, she likes to sing. Pierce will dig her.
I don't think...
Can you rock the narrator from Joseph?
Yeah?
She'll be fine.
Guys, where's Johnny?
Our hero had not yet returned to the mortal coil, for he was waylaid by none other than God himself.
have a situation.
Look, man, I just really want to go home.
I owe you.
Huh?
Zinyak hastened the apocalypse. St. Peter's a good guy, bless his heart, but he was processing souls way too slowly. With the destruction of Earth, Satan had the numbers to storm heaven. All he needed was the President of the United States to lead them.
What, you think I couldn't do it?
No, I think you wouldn't do it. Aisha's up here.
I want to see her.
Slow down, buddy. I said that I owe you, and I'll make good on that. But I want you to know your options.
Gat Out of Hell gives players multiple endings, but there's really only one that's canonical in the grand scheme of things, especially when you consider Agents of Mayhem. In the canonical ending, God recreates the Earth, retconning the entire Saints Row universe and leaving the door wide open for the next chapter. It's a wild conclusion to an even wilder ride.
Johnny knew that he couldn't choose his own happiness at the expense of humanity, and so he asked God to reshape the world, hoping that maybe, just maybe, in this new life, he could find his friends again.
It's really her.
I can't believe we've bagged Brimstone.
It doesn't make sense. She's evaded capture for years. Why would she drop the ball now?
I don't know. When the lieutenant gets to interrogation, Brimstone's gonna talk.
The end.
When looking at Gat Out of Hell's story, it's hard to even call it a traditional narrative. There aren't standard missions, complex story arcs, or deep emotional character growth like in Saints Row 2 or the 3rd. Instead, this game leans into being a bizarre, lore-filled send-off, one that plays more like a victory lap through the chaos of Saints Row's universe. Analyzing it from a story perspective is tricky because much of what drives the game isn't the story itself, but the tone. It's built on absurdity, parody, and self-awareness, but when you dig into what Volition actually tried to do, you start to see something interesting. They packed a lot of world building and historical flavor into a small experimental spin-off. One detail I really admire is how they tried to anchor the premise in occult history. The story literally begins with a Ouija board once belonging to Aleister Crowley, which sets the tone immediately. For most players, that name might fly over their head, but it's a clever touch. Crowley was an English occultist, magician, and a poet who founded Thelma, a spiritual movement that believed in guiding humanity to a new age. Including him as a reference gives the game a subtle layer of thematic grounding. If anyone's going to send you to hell, it makes sense it start with something connected to Crowley's lore. From there, Gat Out of Hell throws you headfirst into Volition's version of the underworld, one that's less fire and brimstone and more like chaotic mashup of mythology, satire, and pop culture. You got William Shakespeare, Blackbeard, and Vlad the Impaler all reimagined as quirky over-the-top characters. It's absurd, but that's the point. Volition wasn't trying to create a deep moral story here. They were having fun twisting history to fit the Saints Row brand of humor.
In the land of the living, William Shakespeare is regarded as one of the most prolific playwrights of all time. However, to the denizens of hell, the bard is seen in a far different light. After selling his soul for fame and adoration, Shakespeare served in hell as Satan's spy master general. In doing his duty, Shakespeare would punish the souls he was investigating by forcing them to perform in grotesque passion plays for Satan's amusement. But in a Twelfth Night-esque twist, Shakespeare found himself living a double life. While he projected an image of cruelty, his heart was as soft as Jezebel's. In secret, he would tutor her on the classics and act out the works of his mortal days. When Satan found out, he cast Shakespeare out of the palace, believing that the poet would be tormented by the populace of hell, far out of Jezebel's sight. But Satan had not counted on the bard's cunning. Embracing his persona of master torturer, Shakespeare and his followers, the tragedies, took root in the entertainment district, biding their time for revenge.
Shakespeare, for example, isn't just a random inclusion. He's portrayed as this flamboyant showman, a DJ spinning beats in Hell's nightclub. It's ridiculous, but oddly fitting, turning the greatest playwright in history into a symbol of eternal entertainment. It's Volition's way of saying, even in hell, everyone plays a role. And that's where the underlying theme of Gat Out of Hell actually shows through. It's not about saving the world. It's about legacy and identity. Johnny Gat, the eternal enforcer of the saints, finds himself in a setting where violence means nothing more, where reputation doesn't carry weight. Even Dex, one of the most infamous traitors in Saints Row's history, barely gets any respect in hell. It's poetic. In a way, the afterlife isn't about who you were. It's about what you represent.
Someone's asking why Dex only had the hat and he had the husk. So there was like a lot of thought put behind this. The only characters that looked like themselves or looked cool were the characters that like gained enough respect in hell and gained enough souls in hell to actually like appear as they wanted to be. We didn't want Dex to like have the satisfaction of being that character. Like Dex did not do so well in hell. He did not get that full skin treatment. Like he didn't get to that level that Dane and Viola and Kiki and all of them got to.
All right, go for it.
Oh my God.
Set off.
I mean that.
I have the knife.
Go for it.
Yeah, shipping.
Look at that.
Shipping.
Shippy, you are free.
Yeah, there's the knives.
Oh shit. Shippy don't take no mess. Look at that.
I mean, when Dex and Gat were first concepted, like they were meant to be like complete, total opposites of each other. Like they were designed that way. Their personalities and their story arcs, like they were designed to be the polar opposites.
Huh.
So they helped provide a cool, like similar to how we were trying to put like Kinsey and Get together in this one. Dex was, kind of an anti-Gat.
Oops. I think I killed you because I said they were not disabled, and then Shippy died right away.
Oh no, Shippy died.
The callbacks to Dex and Dane Vogel are fascinating because they show that Volition was trying to tie up loose ends in the most tongue-in-cheek way possible. Dane's return feels like poetic irony, the corporate villain from Saints Row 2 now reduced to scheming in hell, while Gat, the street soldier, is literally battling Satan himself. It's the Saints Row formula turned up to 11, completely self-aware, mocking its own insanity. While Gat Out of Hell doesn't deliver an emotional resonant story, it does serve as a kind of meta-commentary on the series as a whole. It's the Saints looking back on everything, the chaos, the betrayals, the over-the-top power trips, and turning it all into one final absurd joke or even a Disney musical. And in that way, the story fits. It's not deep, but it's deliberate. When it comes to Gat Out of Hell, the story doesn't end in one clear way. Instead, it gives you 5 different endings, each representing a different side of Johnny Gat's character and the Saints Row universe as a whole. What's interesting is that none of these endings are canon in the traditional sense, but together they serve as a commentary on what Saints Row had become by this point. A series that embraced chaos, freedom, and player choice above all else. The first ending, reunite Johnny with the love of his life, is easily the most emotional. After years of violence and loss, Johnny finally gets the peace he's been chasing, walking through the gates of heaven to reunite with Aisha, the woman whose death shaped his rage throughout the series. It feels like poetic closure. For longtime fans, it's bittersweet. It's the one ending where Gat lays down his guns and finally finds peace. It's rare to see Saints Row slow down for a genuine emotional beat, but here it hits perfectly.
Johnny realized that this was his one chance to make it into heaven. He had to take it.
Hey, Ish.
The end.
The second ending, Crown Johnny the new King of Hell, is the polar opposite. Instead of redemption, it's about power, about Johnny becoming what he's always been, a conqueror. Sitting in Ultor's tallest tower overlooking hell, Gat's calm acceptance that his friends will eventually join him soon says a lot about who he is. Even in the afterlife, Johnny can't escape the chaos. This ending fits Saints Row's satirical tone, the idea that even hell isn't safe from the Saints' brand of domination.
In Hell's weakened state, the heavenly host made short work of Satan and those who were loyal to him. Soon, Johnny was the new ruler of Hell.
Kinda pretty, isn't it?
Yeah, it kinda is.
Do you miss your friends?
Nah, I know they'll be down here in no time.
The end.
The third ending, to find the Saints a new homeworld, feels like a bridge between the ridiculous and the hopeful. After Saints Row 4 ended with the Earth destroyed, this one imagines the Saints carrying humanity's torch across the galaxy. Of course, in true Saints fashion, the new planet they find is inhabited by a psychotic warlike species because peace isn't in their DNA. Johnny's smile at the end feels like an acknowledgement that their fight never really ends. It's the adventure continuing, just on a cosmic scale.
As much as he loved Aisha, Johnny couldn't abandon his friends and the rest of humanity.
There it is.
The planet itself looks perfect. Oxygen base, lush forests, clean water, fertile soil.
What's the catch?
It appears to be inhabited by a psychotic warlike race. This is going to be our toughest fight yet.
Thank you, God.
The end.
Then there's the fourth ending, God recreates Earth, which serves as a meta reset for the entire series. It completely rewrites the timeline, giving Volition a clean slate for future projects. The scene that follows, with Johnny as a cop in a world that clearly isn't Saints Row anymore, sets the stage for Agents of Mayhem. It's a clever move, closing one universe while quietly opening another. It's not just an ending, it's a reboot in disguise.
Johnny knew that he couldn't choose his own happiness at the expense of humanity, and so he asked God to reshape the world, hoping that maybe, just maybe, in this new life, he could find his friends again.
It's really her.
I can't believe we've bagged Brimstone.
It doesn't make sense. She's evaded capture for years. Why would she drop the ball now?
I don't know. When the lieutenant gets to interrogation, Brimstone's gonna talk.
The end.
And then there's the Answers to the Universe ending. The most Saints Row style punchline possible. After all the mayhem, all the chaos, and all the philosophical questions of the afterlife, God gives Johnny every answer he could ever want, and with his only response as a ooh and ah. It's simple, dumb, and hilarious. The perfect cherry on top for this absurd saga.
There were so many questions that Johnny needed answers to. Why did good people suffer? Was there a way to bring peace to all mankind? What was the secret to making a perfect lobster bisque?
Oh.
5 choices, Gat Out of Hell hides one final ending, a secret 100% completion epilogue that acts almost like a where are they now? After Johnny's actions reshape hell, we get a narrated monologue showing how his unlikely alliance changed the entire afterlife. It's surprisingly detailed, offering closure not just for Johnny, but for the eccentric cast that helped him overthrow Satan. We learn that Dane Vogel's partnership with Gat changed him more than he realized, risking his life to save Kiki, marrying her soon after, and even making their former rival William Sharp their pool boy. Vlad the Impaler reclaims his castle in full gothic glory, ruling with an iron fist as Kilbane's screams echo through the halls, a permanent reminder of what happens when you challenge his authority. Blackbeard takes to the skies aboard the Queen Anne's Revenge, patrolling the afterlife like a pirate of purgatory, while Shakespeare becomes even more famous for his twisted new production, The Live Burial of Shogo Akuji. Even Dex gets his long overdue payback, tormented endlessly by those he betrayed. And in a surprisingly fitting twist, Viola plays a diplomat, forging an annual peace conference between heaven and hell, which in true Saints Row fashion ends up just being an excuse for everyone to play volleyball. It's absurd, self-aware, and hilarious, but also captures what made Saints Row special in the first place. Beneath all the insanity, there's a strange sense of community, chaos, and camaraderie that ties it all together. This ending feels like Volition's final wink to the fans, one last laugh before the curtains close. When you look at all 6 endings together, they summarize Saints Row's entire identity. You got humor, heart, chaos, power, and closure, all wrapped in one package. Each ending represents a possible legacy for Johnny Gat, the lover, the ruler, the hero, the survivor, and the fool. And maybe that's the point. There's no single true ending, just like the Saints themselves. Gat Out of Hell refuses to play by the rules. In a way, that's the most fitting goodbye this franchise could have given us.
The alliance that Johnny brought together had far-reaching effects throughout the afterlife. For centuries, the Ultor Alliance ruled in relative peace, until a new threat emerged. A secret cabal that plotted to strike at a time of complacency. The war was long and tumultuous, but in the end, the Ultor Alliance prevailed. So what then became of those who aided Gat? Dane's partnership with Johnny changed him more than he knew. When William Sharp abducted Kiki, Dane risked his life to save her. The two got married soon after. Naturally, an ironclad prenup was agreed to. Sharp is now their pool boy. Vlad's castle was returned to its former terrifying glory. Kilbane's screams echo throughout the shantytown, a permanent reminder of what comes to those who question Vlad's dominion. Blackbeard now sails across the sky on the Queen Anne's Revenge, searching for any others who would threaten the Alliance's control and pressing them into service. Shakespeare's considerable fame only skyrocketed when he unveiled his latest opus, The Live Burial, Exhumation, and Reburial of Shogo Akuji. The critics and audiences loved it. Shogo, not so much. People kept on tormenting Dex. The payback was well overdue. But Viola looked not for power or revenge. The deal she sought was of a different nature. Ever a realist, Viola knew there was no way to barter her way past the pearly gates, but she was quite confident she could reach a different arrangement with God. An annual conference between representatives of heaven and hell. It's really just an excuse for them to play volleyball.
When it comes to gameplay, Gat Out of Hell might just be one of the most purely fun Saints Row experiences out there. From flying across New Hades to mowing down demons, everything just feels fast, chaotic, and satisfying at times. Like Saints Row 4, it's all about movement and momentum, and it nails that part perfectly. Instead of traditional story missions, progression revolves around taking over New Hades through side activities. These include familiar fan favorites like Torment Fraud, which is a spin on insurance fraud, Mayhem, Survival, and Racing. Now with a focus on aerial flight and time routes. New activities like Salvation mixes things up, tasking you with catching souls before they ascend or fall. What's great is how natural all these activities feel in the setting. Nothing feels tacked on. The gameplay loop was tight, rewarding, and surprisingly addictive at times. Combat is just as wild. You start with a standard Earth-style weapons and their demon equivalents, but they feel weak compared to what's coming next. The real stars are the 7 deadly sin weapons, each themed after one of the sins and hilariously overpowered. There's the Armchair Geddon, a literal recliner with dual miniguns and a shotgun that inspires lust, and the Pride Launcher, which lets you suck up souls and fire them like explosive projectiles. These weapons are absurdly unbalanced, but in a game like this, that's the point. Volition wasn't chasing balance, they were chasing fun. Superpowers make their return from Saints Row 4, though slightly tweaked for the afterlife. You got super speed, flight, blast, stomp, aura, and summon. Of course, flying is the real standout here. It's faster, smoother, and sometimes more enjoyable than anything on foot. Once you unlock wings, you rarely touch the ground again. Some powers feel redundant or underpowered, like Stomp, which is mostly utility, or Summon, which suffers from laughably bad AI. But Aura, with its vampiric element, remains a standout, letting you drain health and stay alive mid-chaos. The blast power still reigns supreme, especially with the stone element that can freeze enemies and even vehicles solid. It's a one-button answer to almost any fight, and that imbalance sums up Gat Out of Hell perfectly. It's chaotic and broken in the most entertaining ways possible. Leveling caps out at 20, and you'll likely hit that right as the story wraps up. Upgrades are still here, like infinite ammo and instant reloads, but one disappointing omission is the lack of immunity upgrades. In a world literally filled with explosions, lava, and fire, not being able to resist damage from them feels like a strange step backwards. Another noticeable omission is the lack of cheats in music. Past Saints Row games were known for their massive cheat codes and their incredible radio stations that help define the mood. Here, neither exists. There's no in-game music while flying, no radio station in cars, just silence and ambient noises. It makes sense for the setting, sure, but it also removes a layer of personality the series was known for. The absence of cheats also hurts replayability. Saints Row was built on player freedom, and removing that playful sandbox spirit makes the world of New Hades feel just a bit emptier. The game takes place in New Hades, a fiery open world split across 5 islands: Shantytown, Barrens, Downtown, Forge, and the Den, all surrounding a central tower. Each district reflects its ruler, an iconic historical figure from Hell's lore, giving the world a personality all its own. The atmosphere feels alive despite being dead. Red skies loom overhead, the water is molten lava, and the citizens are hollow husks wandering through eternal punishment. Even the cars, decked out in demonic spikes and an infernal glow, fit perfectly into this twisted sandbox. The cops are gone, replaced by waves of demonic enforcers that respond when chaos breaks loose. For what's essentially an expansion-sized title, Gat Out of Hell is remarkably polished. I did run into a few issues, like the game crashing on exit and once during Torment Fraud activity, but nothing major enough to ruin the experience. The performance overall is smooth, with fluid flying mechanics and responsive combat that make exploring Hell surprisingly relaxing. At the end of the day, Gat Out of Hell feels like a testing ground, a playground for Volition to see just how far they can push the series' ridiculousness after Saints Row 4. The core gameplay is a blast, the flight system is addictive, and the 7 deadly sins weapons are some of the most creative in the franchise. Still, it's far from perfect. The unbalanced combat, lack of customization, missing cheats, and absence of radio stations make the world feel a bit hollow at times. The story structure driven by Satan's wrath meter instead of traditional missions is an interesting idea, but ultimately reinforces that this was never meant to be a full sequel. That said, for a $20 standalone title, it delivers plenty of fun. Reaching 100% completion, unlocking all 5 endings, gathering every collectible, and maxing every upgrade took me roughly about 8 hours. It's wild, broken, over the top, and unapologetically Saints Row. And for Johnny Gat's final ride, that's exactly what it needed to be. When Saints Row 4 Gat Out of Hell launched, it received mixed to positive reviews across all platforms. On Metacritic, the game scored a 66 on PC, 65 on Xbox One, and 64 on PlayStation 4. Not bad, but not exactly great either. Most critics agreed that while the gameplay was fun and the setting was creative, the lack of depth and short runtime kept it from reaching the heights of earlier entries. Destructoid Brittany's Vincent gave the game an 8 out of 10, praising its wild setting, the new flight mechanics, and the creative spin on Hell itself. She highlighted how the game's world feels more polished and finished than Saints Row 4's still poor simulation, but admitted its short length held it back. Her final verdict captured the essence of the series. There's no agenda, no life lessons to learn in Saints Row. There's only pure escapism, which is what games are meant for. Game Informer Andrew Rayner gave it a 7.5 out of 10, complimenting the fun side activities, clever dialogue, and creative weapon designs, while noting the visuals still look stuck on last-gen territory. He also mentioned the occasional frame rate drops and the general lack of gameplay complexity, which made the experience enjoyable but not groundbreaking. IGN's Michael Rapars took a harsher stance, giving it a 7.8 out of 10, criticizing the repetitive side content, missing story missions, and unimpressive visuals, even calling the game extremely buggy at launch. Likewise, hardcore gamers Alex Carlson gave it a 3.5 out of 5, noting that while the voice acting, collectibles, and world design were solid, it felt a little too similar to Saints Row 4. PC gamers Phil Savage gave it a 67 out of 100, saying that while Flying Through Hell provided a new sense of freedom, the lack of structure, campaign missions, and weak combat design held it back. He summed it up best by saying, Gat Out of Hell offers the open world distractions of a Saints Row game, but seldom displays the spark of creativity that made the third and the fourth so remarkable. So overall, critics agreed on a few things. Gat Out of Hell was fun, fast, and undeniably a Saints Row at its core, but it felt more like a DLC turned spin-off than a full-fledged sequel. Its creativity shined through brightest in its weapons and humor, but the limited story and lack of polish stopped it short of greatness. Now let's talk about the average gamer. For the average player, Gat Out of Hell was a mixed bag, a game that delivered on fun and chaos but struggled to keep that momentum going. Many fans enjoyed the simple thrill of flying through New Hades, unleashing superpowers, and embracing the absurdity that Saints Row had become. The gameplay sense of freedom, especially the flight system, was often highlighted as one of the game's best features. Players who enjoyed it saw Gat Out of Hell as a lighthearted spin-off, a short but entertaining ride that didn't take itself too seriously. They appreciated that it gave Johnny Gat a starting role, praised the smooth flight mechanics, and liked that it offered pure unfiltered mayhem without worrying about customization or long mission structures. For them, it was exactly what it set out to be: fun, fast, and chaotic. But not everyone saw it that way. Many players criticized the game's lack of depth, repetitive mission design, and basic combat. The world of Hell looked intriguing at first, but for some it quickly felt empty, a setting filled with potential that never fully paid off. Others were disappointed by the lack of features that had defined Saints Row in the past, like cheat codes, radio stations, and full player customization. Without them, the game felt stripped down and missing part of its identity. A common sentiment was that while Gat Out of Hell captured the series' humor and outrageous tone, it lacked the heart and structure that made earlier titles like Saints Row 2 and the third so memorable. The short runtime also divided players. Some appreciated that it didn't overstay its welcome, while others felt it was too shallow to justify more than a single playthrough. Overall, Players agreed that the game was fun in bursts, but not as memorable as the mainline entries. It was a wild, occasionally brilliant farewell to the original Saints Row timeline, but it was also a clear sign that the series was ready for a reboot. Okay, allow me to say this. I would have never played this game if it wasn't for this channel. And after this video, I doubt I will ever play this game again. That's not a shot at the franchise as a whole, but honestly, Gat Out of Hell feels like it should have just been a DLC rather than something canonically significant. The world is smaller, the structure is lighter, and while there's a story here, it often feels non-existent. Without traditional missions, you lose that character development that Saints Row used to be known for. Take Saints Row 4, for example. A lot of people didn't love the tone, but at least it gave us a full narrative arc. We saw characters grow, especially Kinsey, who became a fan favorite. Here, that development is gone. Unless you're focused on unlocking all the endings, there's very little character depth. And honestly, the lack of customization really hurts how this game is perceived. It would have worked better if we played as the boss again, even with limited outfit choices. Instead, we're stuck choosing between Gat or Kinsey. And while this is supposed to be Gat's story, Kinsey's inclusion feels more like filler variety than narrative balance. The only real moment of significance for her is when it's her birthday, and of course when she transforms into a version of the boss to fight alongside Gat. Being honest, that's not Kinsey. You mean to tell me this is the same woman who was hiding under a table back in Saints Row the 3rd? I get it, she blossomed in 4, just like Shawnee did in the 3rd, but this portrayal doesn't match her character. Kinsey's not a killer with a gun, she's a killer with a keyboard. That's always been her strength. And while I get that the developers were going for an odd couple dynamic between Gat and Kinsey, they barely interact throughout the story. Switching between them doesn't change much either. No unique powers, no exclusive weapons, nothing really distinguishes one from the other. At times it felt like a missed opportunity. And let's be honest, when your game turns into a full-blown Disney-style musical number, that's when you know you've truly gone to hell. The lack of music in general also hurts this game. I understand. There might not be much music in the underworld, but the potential was there. Imagine if they added songs tied to the lore. If Shakespeare was damned for selling his soul, what about other musicians? There's a whole layer of creativity they could have took to make Hell's culture richer. I question a lot of the writing direction here, because this game ultimately feels like a sandbox experiment, much like Saints Row 4 with the 3rd. But without the same heart or cohesion. At least 4 had structure, humor, and surprisingly a touching ending. Building off that, they could have gone in so many creative directions. Time travel, alternate dimensions. They could have did a parody of DC's Legends of Tomorrow with the Saints crew, or they could have even did a Doctor Who style story going through time. There was so much potential left on the table. But as always, these are just my opinions. I encourage you to form your own. While I always stay open to giving games a fair chance, I'm not afraid to say this one didn't click with me. Still, it's a worthwhile experience because sometimes even the weaker entries tell an important part of a franchise's story. Just look at Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero. And I'll be honest, I'm part of that group that feels like someone paid Saints Row to take a knee and derail its own legacy. Because what followed, Agents of Mayhem, didn't exactly change minds either. And the answer is no. I'm not covering that game. This was more than enough. But if Gat Out of Hell was your favorite or you found joy in it, I respect that. There was definitely an audience for this game. Sadly, I just wasn't part of it. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you. This one was a little on the shorter side, but it was still worth exploring. If you enjoyed it or learned something new, hitting that like button really helps smaller channels like this one grow. For the next 2 weeks, we're back with the Rockstar Takeover, wrapping up our Midnight Club series with Midnight Club LA. The following week, we'll be continuing our Grand Theft Auto coverage with GTA The Lost and the Damned. If you want to stay up to date on all my latest uploads, hitting that subscribe button helps support the channel. And if you're feeling a little extra generous, you can always buy me a cup of coffee. With that said, this is the Retro Phantom, signing out.